Let's look at the big picture. Who is affected and what happens over time? I thought there might be large numbers of children sitting at their desks in classrooms all over the country who are unable to read, but who had never been accounted for in studies of dyslexia. To understand the full scope of the problem, we needed to count all children with reading problems, and not only those who are already visible and receiving help. So you ask, how do you obtain normative data about who and how many children are dyslexic? What happens over time? And do you outgrow dyslexia? How do you find answers to these questions? In order to differentiate between children who are experiencing reading problems and those who are learning to read with ease, it was necessary to establish exactly what rate of reading development, what behaviors, and what characteristics are typical for children. That would require studying large numbers of children over an extended period, as it turned out, from the time they entered kindergarten well into mature adulthood and the workplace. And so the Connecticut longitudinal study, the CLS, was born, a unique study led by myself, Dr. Sally Shaywitz, and Dr. Bennett Shaywitz, that has really genuinely helped answer these questions. This involved enrolling a large, diverse group of 445 boys and girls entering kindergarten in Connecticut in 1983, and this represented 95% for all those who were eligible. The group's gender, ethnic, and racial composition was representative of the population of children entering public kindergarten in the entire U.S. that year. The participants have been regularly monitored since then. The boys and girls who began this study at age 5 are now mature men and women. Although they now live in 34 different states and have lived in at least 7 foreign countries, the vast majority of the original participants, 82%, continue to be committed to the Connecticut longitudinal study. Their experiences provide a panoramic view of the process of learning to read. Now I'm going to insert a caution. Most schools don't even assess for dyslexia. Yes, that is true for schools in the United States in the 21st century. Consistent with data from NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, representative samples obtained biannually, the 2019 NAEP indicate less than half of all students are proficient in 4th grade reading. Numbers for some groups are even worse. Only about 1 in 5 Hispanic and Native American students are proficient in 4th grade reading. But at the same time, we must keep in mind that in a 1998 NAEP survey, over half, 55% of children of college graduates perform below proficiency in reading achievement in 8th grade. Going back to the 2019 NAEP data, as many as 34% of 4th graders had not achieved even the most basic or rudimentary skills in reading. In some groups, particularly African American students, more than 50%, more than half of 4th graders have not achieved those levels. From a national perspective, given that dyslexia affects approximately 1 in 5, there is not a family in America that has not been touched by dyslexia in some way. A child, a spouse, a grandchild, a sister or a brother, a niece or nephew, a friend, a neighbor, or a coworker. So I think I have to say now, Houston, we have a problem. How are schools doing on identification of dyslexia? Are there specific groups who are being overlooked? Given that dyslexia affects 20% of students, but schools identify less than 4%, it is obvious that schools are failing to diagnose the great majority of dyslexic students, children who could and should be helped. 1 out of 5, 20% of the population has it. And we've also learned that it shows itself up very, very quickly when you begin school.
It's scary to think that, like, I have a 13-year-old daughter that I was extremely scared and worried that this would be an issue for her. And to this day, and she's obviously still in school, she's in 7th grade, and I'm adamant about her. If there's any extra things that she can do for her reading or just school period, like there's math, all the different subjects. I just really, really wish there was more programs like this that that were mandatory in schools to be a part of. Like, yeah, it's really unfortunate to hear that number and to know that people have struggled like myself or have been in even more difficult scenarios. I've been very fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate to play professional basketball for a very long time and get access and exposed to so many different countries and different experiences. I just refuse to allow me not being able to read to a level that I felt comfortable or being able to do on my own hold me back.